Hey everyone, welcome to Inner Sanctuary. In this episode, I have a deep conversation with Dr. Melissa Petersen. She is the founder of Human Longevity Institute. She's a best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and an expert in topics dealing with human potential, health, well-being, longevity, and epigenetics. This is one of my favorite episodes. We discuss a range of topics dealing with how ancient technologies, when combined with modern science, can lead to a fullest expression of our innate, beautiful nature. We delve into how we can utilize our environment to live optimally. We talk about how the human system takes in inputs from the environment, from the surrounding, including the way we think, um, our connection to our ancestors. We discuss topics of trauma, topics of stress, mindset, and above all, it is she carries a lot of wisdom, and it is her beautiful, enlightening nature. And passion and zeal about helping others that comes off in this conversation. And I hope you guys listen to it with full attention and enjoy it. Thank you. Hello, Dr. Melissa.
Hi,
Good to see you.
you as well. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, I just love your background, as I was saying. It's so,
Mm.
it's, I love the visual. I think
And
it's,
today, as we're recording this on solstice, big energies around masculine, feminine, and of course, with the sacred geometry behind me. That's a representation of it. Yeah.
yeah, I was a few weeks, I think last week, and I was down in Austin, Texas. I was driving to another city nearby, and we stopped by a gas station before reaching our final destination. The cashier had the same geometry tattoo.
Ah,
And I was really
wonderful.
fascinated back then as well. Yeah. So yeah, hope everything is okay. Well on your end, Dr. Melissa. You are. Let me introduce as much as I can. You are. You are the founder of Human Longevity Institute, an expert in the science of longevity, a wellness coach, a chiropractor, an epigenetic coach, and many other things, a TEDx speaker, and a beautiful human being. Besides all of that,
Thank
I love your passion and your energy. I love how you educate others on the topics of health, wellness, and yeah, I just love your energy. So it's
thank
a
you.
pleasure to have you on in this show.
Well, thank you. I receive all of that. And likewise, I mean, we've had the pleasure of knowing each other now for I think probably 5 years or so. And same. Your energy is always just magnificent and I love it. So I'm so glad we have played text tag forever to try to realign our schedules. So I'm really happy to be here today.
Same here. So let's start off.
Mhm.
Can you tell us about how did this journey begin in your mind, and how did you become really passionate about health and longevity?
Hmm. I'm doing my best to shorten this answer. So let me put a couple of dots together. And I'm so sorry to do this. My dog is here with me and she's now requesting to be out. So pause me 1 second. I'm so sorry.
Sure, sure.
Normally this doesn't happen, but she's not being a good co-host. So as I was sitting down to do the interview, she was scratching at the door, and I'm like, "Okay, you can be office dog." And then she was like, "Yeah, no, I don't want to be office dog." So environment is clear. Um, so how I really found my way into longevity. I think with life, it's really interesting when you're at a point and you can kind of step back and look over your timeline almost and see obvious clues that at the time you didn't even know were there. And one of the first earliest memories I have is I grew up in an Italian household, European household. And I remember just seeing all these really robust Italians. They were old, but they were beautiful. Like they all just had amazing skin and so much vitality. And they were smoking and joking and playing cards and eating food. Like they just were the epitome of what you would imagine an Italian family to be. And I remember our Sunday meals, and it was just so much life. And then on my mother's side, very European, like my great grandmother, she lived to 95. I was just surrounded with a lot of elders. And as I looked around as a kid, and I don't even know where I learned this from, I just very clearly remember myself saying, I'm going to age so well because I have great genes. I think I was 10. I don't even know where that comment came from. And so it's not like it was a conscious thing, but that's kind of clue number one. Fast forward along my journey. I mean, I've started in health when I was little. I was dancing by the age of 2.5. I was in the gym working out in 6th grade. I was a personal trainer and nutritionist. By the time I was 20, a choreographer, again, dancer, just everything was very wellness based. And I found my way into chiropractic. And from chiropractic, I found my way into like positive psychology because I just realized it's not just about treating a perceived problem. There's something so much more. And I really got curious into the depths of the mind and consciousness and psychology and positive psychology. And my brain just puts pieces together. And so fast forward then into functional medicine and integrative medicine, and just realizing, like, going down the rabbit hole of saying there's so much more than this very mechanistic, we're a piece or a part, a this or a that, and all we need is a pill for an ill. Like I just knew at a very young age that that just didn't feel true in my system. And so we just came up on the 18th anniversary of my mom's passing, and she had transitioned just a few days after she turned 54. And um, wow, this is like really, this is hitting. Our birthdays were just a few days apart, and I just turned 53. Ooh. And I really watched. It was fascinating because that was way before you and I met when I was running an academy for epigenetics. I'd started in epigenetics probably back then because I feel like that was around the time when Bruce Lipton published Biology of Beliefs. That was kind of the first foray into any of us having an idea that our thoughts, our environment, external inputs could inform and influence our very DNA. And so I was a very early adopter to his work, and I was fascinated by it. And of course, I was doing everything else from a wellness, integrative health standpoint. And when my mother had gotten her diagnosis, it was so fascinating that as soon as we knew that she had cancer, I immediately started her with, we really kind of took an epigenetic approach, understanding what were the influences that needed to be reduced and removed, and what was her body, her mind, her heart, and her soul craving that we needed to replace and to replenish, the quality of the inputs. And she was the head of HR for a big hospital system, and she had a very demanding life, high stress, incredibly high stress. She had deeply repressed trauma, a lifetime of trauma. And what was fascinating is she decided to take a sabbatical. So she gave herself a 6-week reprieve, and she left work. She just went and deep dove into self-care. And in 6 weeks' time, she went in with literally tumors the size of softballs. When she came out of 6 weeks of just daily meditations, self-care, self-love, nourishing her body with good foods, her tumors all shrank. And the doctors said, "What have you been doing?" Now, the unfortunate side of this story, and really part of the clues and what led me to why I'm so passionate about what I do today, is that, and I think this is human nature, that once we perceive a problem is gone, we go back to doing the same things that we were doing. So her tumor shrunk. She decided just for preventative. She went through a round of chemo. She came through the other side. Everything was in remission. Clean bill, right? And so then she went back into her patterns, back into her workload, back into dismissing self-care time, not with as much intention and attention. And slowly but surely, months over months, a couple months pass, 6, 9 months, and then tumor markers start to rise again. Now, it's a very personal journey, what we all go through with health and our body. And I watched her the second go around. She couldn't get her mind. Her mind was just like, I can't do this. And I watched her really give up because of the things that she thought mattered to her, which was work. They like, well, we've got to just bring in a temporary replacement. We're not getting rid of you. We love you. Like, but a corporation, hospital has to go on. And I know this is a long answer, but I need to honor this. So I just want to thank you and the listeners for allowing me this time.
Of course.
And I'm I've never fallen apart like this on an interview. And I clearly haven't spoke about this in a while. This is really interesting. And so I watched her. I watched her shut down, and it was okay. It was her journey, and I held space for her and honored her transition. But when that transition occurred shortly after, the questions that I began to ask is, will her fate become mine? Because as much as I understood epigenetics, there's this old story of genetics. Your DNA is your destiny. So 18 years ago, that was still very much in, in the collective. We're more educated now, but I think fundamentally at a deep unconscious level, it's part of that collective story that we've been told of more of a determinism approach. And even though I knew consciously, no, her story's not my story, there was a fear and a concern. And I didn't necessarily do something right away, but there was this part of me going, wait a minute, I have great genes. I have elders that live into their late 90s, robust, vital life. And then I have my mother who left very early. So I was living in this smack dab in the middle of these polarities. And it was a choice point, right? I could have chose to go, well, this is my destiny. I could have really let that sink in unconsciously and just started to go down a path. I just said, you know what? I am all of it and I get to choose my path. And so as I moved forward, I would say, the evolution of my health career, and I've worked with doctors and coached doctors as well as been a practitioner. I've been a practitioner for close to 30 years now, which is kind of crazy. I've been coaching doctors and practitioners for almost 20 years. And so on this journey in evolution, I started to see, I'm like, longevity. I just saw it coming. I just was watching the science. I was looking at all of it and I was like, here is a place that brings together lifestyle, spirituality and consciousness, advanced science, molecules, technology. And it was this, to me, this beautiful merge point of everything that I was, but this beautiful merge point of advanced science and tech with ancient wisdom and practices that could truly offer up modern solutions that I knew fundamentally would allow us as a human species to change the trajectory, if we choose, of how we live today to transform our tomorrows. And so I just started to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And And I had more and more of my practitioners saying, when are you going to teach us this stuff? I'd ran some summits on longevity summits and things like that. And I just said, well, I guess it's time. And so a 10-minute answer later, here we are.
Thank you for sharing. That was really beautiful and enlightening and really personal. Thank you for sharing the story of your mother, how she inspired you. I um,
Yeah.
I love the wording that you said, the wording transition,
Yeah.
instead of death, because I was listening to a little clip of one of my good friends, teachers, um, one of the first podcast hosts. He's a roadman that serves the medicine of peyote, and he has this clip
Mm.
recently. He's like, in our culture, we don't have the word death.
Yeah.
Um, Death always brings fear. We say transition, so that we are here and now. So thank you for
Yes.
sharing that. It was really beautiful. And I also have something very similar, as in, uh, given the current conditions of my parents, it inspired me to look for
Yeah.
solutions for myself, for them. I remember one time I was asking you for tips and advice on the different supplements that I can take back home.
Yeah.
So the love, the bond between, our elders, gives us that
Yes.
inspiration. It's really powerful.
How
And
are your parents?
they're all right. I'm always in search for new ways, new methods, because they come from an old school, a region where longevity, exercise are not promoted.
Mm.
The food quality is could be optimized. There is so much pollution, so much
Yeah.
trauma and negative thought patterns and all of that. The older generation, uh, who did not get exposed to the new modalities of awareness and awakening that we
Yeah.
are envisioning and practicing. So I think it becomes a responsibility for our generation to take that and pass it on whatever we
It
can.
it really does, Shamim, and if I may, I think this is an interesting opportunity for us, if you want to explore, at least for a moment, transgenerational epigenetics. So this understanding of the information that is encoded
Mm,
generationally, across generations. And, this may be stretching it for some listeners, and it might be right in the pocket for other listeners. But if we can all just go, okay, there's what are we? What are we? Right? At our purest form, we're energy. If we just look to basic physics, like at our purest form, we are energy. Everything is energy, all of it, right? And so we come from some energetic source, whatever we want to call that, whatever we want to label that. And and so this understanding that, it's like the space in between connects us. So it's not just about you're here and then you're gone. It is a transition, and that energy is a continuation, and that energy, literally the information is encoded in the DNA, and it's like it's there and it's accessible. And what's fascinating is that we have the opportunity to clear traumas. We don't have to know what they are. We don't have to relive what our parents' traumas or our grandparents' traumas were. Yet by doing our own self work, right, to give ourselves the the grace and the support to go into the moments without judgment, to feel the feelings, to feel the good, to feel the bad, to feel the light and the shadow and the dark and everything in between, and to move those energies to clear it. Like, we can help to bring healing to them, even if they are unable to know how to access that for themselves.
mm,
And I'll tell you, and I'll take a moment, because I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I haven't spoke about this yet at all either. About 8 weeks ago, I went and I did a 5-day silent meditation retreat, and I connected with my mother a tremendous amount in that time and in some of my very deep meditations. And so, even when we think that people that we love, whether they're still physically here or not, we can all connect with one another in ways that we wouldn't necessarily consciously think that we can. And what I was able to heal with her, and even some of the energies that were hers and my grandmother's, it was profound. It was so, so, so profound. And so there's really something, I'm sure that could be a whole series of conversations, and I'm sure you and other guests have that, but it's really profound work if we are willing to allow ourselves just to not be afraid of emotions and not think that they have to define us. But it's the thing I've been practicing is when, like in those meditations, I was like, just take me by the hand. Take me where you want to take me. Show me what you need to show me. Tell me what you need to tell me. Let me feel what you need me to feel. And I just was open to it. And some of them were brutal, like horrific feelings. I was like, ooh. And some of them were deliciously amazing, but it was just simply surrendering to that process and coming through the other side and feeling like I knew I did work. And I didn't go into work, but I knew that what had happened impacted her, even though she's transitioned and gone, and my grandmother, right? And myself, and then my future generations. So I'm instantaneously made a change in my son and what will ever happen in his offspring, so it's really quite beautiful.
Thank you for sharing, and feel free to dominate the conversation or take it into any direction you like. The floor is yours as well. And yeah, it's I love the words you mentioned, like surrender, trust. This is a really powerful frames, mindsets, and you can call it different terms, moment to moment. Thank you for sharing. And meditation is also a really powerful tool. And I love the fact, and I love talking to people like you, because you just don't, you guys are, you tend to live your life merging modalities, ancient and modern as well. I was when I was in Texas, I had the opportunity to interview one of your ex-colleagues, Dr.
Mhm.
Dr. Daniel Stickler as well. Um, so I get to meet all these individuals who bring science and wisdom and spirituality, and how we can use that to reach our full potential. And like you
Yeah.
mentioned, you know, look into our past trauma, our generational trauma. So coming back to the topic of longevity, it's in the forefront of, I think, everyone's mind. Some, like you
Mhm.
said, something sparked you when you were like very young, and some others you'd see they would think about it when they're like ailing. Death is coming near. And also, if you look at the television media, like I remember one of my favorite shows, Altered Carbon, science fiction show, where they would have this chip transplanted somewhere behind your neck that would transfer consciousness from body
Mhm.
to body.
Mhm.
And there are stories of sages who have reached different levels of siddhi, of powers that would um, allow you to change their reality in a quantum level, so that you change your body and mind. And recently, I was watching this little, like, tiny YouTube clip where Brian Johnson, the
Mhm.
one of the most popular, he goes to Honduras, I think this place called Prospera, for a gene therapy,
Mhm.
and it comes back to genetics and epigenetics. So I would like your opinion on some of the tools and protocols
Yeah.
that we could sort
Yeah.
of look into.
Shamim, I think there's something very interesting that is happening. First of all, in the space, it does really bode itself to a wide field of potentiality. So, on the one end of the spectrum, you've got individuals, and there's no judgment on this. I'm going to make a point with it for consideration. You've got individuals that want to split, do gene editing. They want to plug into Neuralink. And Brian is a perfect example. He's like, live by the algorithm. He is algorithmic. He's like, I'm living by the algorithm. I'm following AI. I'm letting it tell me how to be human. And in essence, and again, there's that side of it, right? So we kind of have our cybernauts, our people that are like, yes, let's become all, let's use the tech, let's integrate with the tech, and that's an option that we have. Um, I stand on the side where I feel fundamentally we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of knowing what it means to be human. And I think that by integrating and living through algorithms and getting super techie, it's super cool. Trust me, I love biohacking and all the things. And yet, all that is really mimicking our natural, innate nature. Like every piece of technology is simply trying to mimic the most advanced technology, which is the human being. And so we continue fundamentally to buy into this story that the very thing we're seeking is outside of us, outside of us, outside of us. Even life extension is outside of us. But you don't have to plug a chip in to tap into the consciousness of the greatest gurus. Like you really don't have to. You know what I mean? Like there's again, I work that's a whole other side that of conversation. Yet beyond going to consciousness and depths of consciousness and accessing additional states of knowing what is possible, we're all so busy detaching from the human experience every day. And it happens, and we all are subject to it. The moment we pick our fun little devices up, right? And I'm not in judgment. I'm giving us an opportunity to self-reflect and go, what really matters to me? So I believe, so there's the modalities, they span. And to really answer your question, what we teach at the Human Longevity Institute, we actually teach a longevity system. And what we absolutely know in the science is that 75 to 90% of what's going to speed up or slow down the rate and pace of biological aging, that means how fast our bodies are. So, aging is a metabolic process. Let me just back up for a moment. It begins the moment we are conceived. At conception, we start to grow. When we start to need to build things and grow and develop, there's a metabolic cycle. Every cell makes energy, uses energy, and the waste has to be removed. So, this metabolic function of creating life, creating energy, building to be, to express, to experience happens at conception. And then it goes throughout the span until we transition out of this form. And so when we look at how fast we are metabolizing, right? And how effectively we are removing the waste products. Do we have the gas in the tank, the right tools coming in to properly metabolize on the front end? Then are we efficient to remove the waste, not just out of the cell, but out of the body? And if we have those in balance, we are humming along. We are not going too fast. We're not going too slow. We have clocks in every cell. We're being cued by the light dark cycles. We kind of know where we're at in space and time, and we're having this awesome human experience. But then, just like your parents, because many of us are living in a very toxically burdened environment, whether it's chemical, it's mental, it's emotional, right? It's physical. We have a lot of these inputs and demands coming on our system. And as we chronologically age, we have more demands that come in, more responsibilities, more actions, more activities. And so that requires more energy, requires more metabolic activity. And if we don't have the right tools to do the job, we can't keep up with the job. So things start to break down. So aging is this build up and breakdown process. And the longer we go chronologically, how many years we've been here alive, candles on the birthday cake, the likelihood of things falling behind, breaking down, not getting tended to increase. And so that's why we see these signs. We see things like, achy joints and injuries and lack of mobility and brain fog and saggy skin because things are breaking down. Okay. What we teach is that we know that this process, this breakdown process, it correlates directly with all-cause mortality and chronic disease. So biological age is kind of this metric that lets us know, are we reducing our likelihood of expressing chronic disease? Are we extending our ability to live healthy for a long time? Or are we breaking down and we are increasing our likelihood of expressing chronic disease and dying of any reason early, right? So if 75 to 90% of that can be mitigated by lifestyle, there we don't have those odds with gene editing. We can't give those same guarantees of an outcome with gene editing or even plugging into Neuralink. Like I just feel like we're missing the forest through the trees and we are missing such basic obvious things. So we teach the system of how you stack intelligently, simply the way this human technology was designed to pair lifestyle with molecules. And molecules is a really big container because it's supplements and herbs and natural compounds. It's also which then extend into peptides and bioregulators and exosomes and stem cells and hormones. So there's a very real need to, when the system's been deficient, to add in, or when it's overloaded, to remove. We need to give support back. So we teach lifestyle, we teach molecules, and then we teach in the stacking of technologies. But we teach how the technology can first be done without anything that has to plug in to anywhere. The technology is the human. You go outside, we teach you how to activate it. So I believe that there's a lot of exciting things, and we all get to be at choice. Some people are called to plug in, and some people are called to unplug, right?
Thank you for explaining. It was um, not to use uh, understandable medical terms. You explained it really simply and in a holistic and humanistic way. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I feel there is this divide of some people who wants to plug in externally
Mhm.
and not explore any of the internal wisdom of the body, of the mind,
Yeah.
of the soul, of the spirit, um, and then jump into the pill or the solution. There is that tendency as well, and we all are different. Um, I You also touched initially at the core. I think you touched on the cellular level on specifically one of the core components that mitochondria,
Mhm.
mitochondriac health. Can you
Yeah.
and then can you speak a little? What are your thoughts on that? How can we optimize our mitochondrial health, and also maybe slowly transition, if possible, into one of the core centers is our gut health. I would love to hear
Mhm.
your opinions or ideas on that.
Yeah. Okay. So our mitochondria are in every cell. They are our little powerhouses, right? Help to produce the energy that the body makes. And so when we think, how do we help the mitochondria? Well, let's first realize that every cell needs a few basic things, very basic. So, one of the most important things is we can go weeks without food and water, right? Minutes without oxygen. So, what does the cell need? The cell needs oxygen. The cell needs some very basic nutrients, some key vitamins. We'll talk about those in a minute, a few minerals. It needs some essential fatty acids. It does really well with a little polysaccharides, and that kind of pairs into gut health to make sure that the right fuel source is there to power the cell. So fundamentally, and we need light, and we need light. Light catalyzes. Every cell has chromophores. So the way that we interact with the light dark circadian cycle is paramount in how efficient and effective our cells are at actually producing good, clean energy. But again, super easy analogy. It's just like a car. Are we putting in premium grade or the cheapest unleaded that we can find? Because the quality of the input determines the quality of the output. So because we live in a time where many of us are eating things out of a box, a bag, a can, a drive-through, that food is already deficient in core nutrients, like the really good, like dense nutrients that the cell needs. So it's, especially in longevity or in biohacking, a lot of people like to go to the thing because I can tell you right away a peptide that you can use, and we'll talk about it in a moment, to help to stimulate mitochondrial efficiency. However, if you don't have these core nutrients coming in, they can't synthesize the amino acids properly from the peptides. So again, we keep wanting to do these extra shiny things and be super cool and super trendy and like, I want the next thing. But we across the board are fundamentally missing basic nutrition. So a lot can be done to help the cell by first, and this is real simple. Like, you don't have to have a medical degree to tune into your body and say, and look at your life and say, where do I feel overloaded? What are the things that I'm doing, that I'm exposed to, that I interface with, whether it's food, drink, people, environment, that when I'm there, I just notice that I feel off. It doesn't feel good. It feels a little agitating to my system. And I'll give you an example. I was at a conference in Las Vegas last week, and inside of all of those hotels, not only are you not getting any sunlight, that aside, but they all have their signature scent. So they pump through, right? These, and a lot of hotels do this nowadays, but it's everywhere out there. All these hotels pump this fragrance in the environment. And I do not like, I don't like fragrance. That is one thing I have a keen sensitivity to smell, and I'm very heightened with it. It's not like it doesn't give me a headache, but I don't like it, becomes not like, I don't like it. I'm like, ooh, that's a distraction for me. My system doesn't feel good with that. Okay. So that's just an example. Now, obviously I was there and I couldn't remove myself from there for a couple of days. However, I was aware this is something that doesn't feel good in my system. And that's just a little thing. So I could be at choice. So anytime I had the opportunity, I went outside, outside, right? Breathe in fresh air, get fresh sunlight, because I knew what felt good versus what didn't feel good. So I give this example to say that if we want to help the cells, we first need to notice, where are we maybe overloading our system and we're giving it more work? Because if we want our cells to work better, first of all, do we have enough gas in the tank? And that's basic nutrients. If we have gas in the tank, do we have enough to keep up? So a lot of us keep just putting a lot on our system. And I go back to this phone because we do not appreciate how much energy it takes just to quickly scroll. Our brain uses more than 20% of our energy production every single day. And it can use more, right? Depending on the things we're doing with it. So how do we help ourselves? We get basic nutrients. And that can be as simple as a very good clinical grade multivitamin. Now, we teach all the nutritional things, how you get it at the end of your fork, but you need all of your Bs. You really do. You got to have your B1, your B2, your B3. B3, you want to get it, that's niacin. It's better to get it as nicotinamide, because you hear all this hoopla over NAD plus, NMN, NM. Well, nicotinamide is what you need. B3 breaks down into NAD. So it's NADH. And when you run the Krebs cycle, the hydrogen comes off to help produce that energy. So we can't get NAD actually into, that's not how it works. It doesn't just go into the cell. Like, you need it's got to have the NADH. So it breaks down to help make the energy. So that's actually in a multivitamin. You want folate, not folic acid. You want B6, you want B12. Like, these are really key elements in creating energy in the mitochondria. Again, you need the essential fatty acids. So that aside, are we good on that? Like, because I can, you know me, you can clearly tell, I can just keep going and going and going. So first, basic nutrients in, think of that as gas in the tank. Second, reduce any excess work you're putting on the system. Like, just kind of start to be aware, be curious, what feels like it's overloading me? Could I do less? Could I expose myself less to that? Could I interface with that a little less frequency? Could I completely eliminate that? Okay, so those are first two steps. Questions on that before I go into some more advanced things?
No, thank you for covering that. Are we, if you are we still staying in the cell, or are we moving on? If we're still
If
in
you
the
want
cell, I
to.
have, yeah, I have a question about the compound that's been used in many popular supplement companies, urolithin A. So in MitoPure, things like that.
Mhm.
I think it's a postbiotic, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not really familiar with the science. Just curious because you spoke about multivitamin. Um, what are your thoughts on maybe urolithin A? A lot of scientists are talking
So
about it.
again, and I'm not, so part of what that's doing is helping with CoQ10 production and PPQ. So those are things in the cell. So yes, like that is something that can absolutely be beneficial.
Yeah.
And again, some of these elements, a lot of these you're able just to get from a nutrient dense diet, but since many of us are not, it's easier to do a nice supplement, a foundational supplement. We're actually right now coming out with one. So soon, 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 but I don't know when this podcast will air. We don't have it yet, but you guys are welcome to come back to humanlongevityinstitute.com, and we've always got things that are happening there with the molecules. So, one of I've got to tell you, Shameen, that we do always get really focused on molecules, like because it seems like the answer. And we really do need foundational, just basic vitamins and minerals coming in before we do any other things. So make sure that you got that. But then the question does really become, okay, what's happening in the system? Because, and here's what I mean. One of the things that doesn't get understood is the impact of trauma on how it utilizes energy. So, kind of like it's a behind the scenes running of energy. So, think of it almost like a little vortex in the system that's kind of like just it's siphoning off energy. It's there, it's this ball that's like requiring. And traumas, like they can amp the system up when we're in an anxious state, like a fight or flight, like very sympathetic dominant, but then it can crash us out to where the system is completely drained. So in a trauma progression, there's a level 3 and a level 4 that the energy is totally depleted. And so we're thinking, oh, we got to sleep more, we got to do this. And people can't, like a lot of people that have significant trauma are insomniacs, like they're exhausted all the time. But the very thing that they need, they're unable to do because it all takes energy to make energy. And so again, often people are missing basics, but then it depending on what is happening, like if we can start to discharge some of the overload to the system, a really simple way, which is also a biohack, is to go out and ground, like literally go barefoot, put ourselves in touch with the earth. That helps to discharge energy out. It also helps to bring negative ions back in. So both, not only do we discharge, it kind of brings our negative and positive ions, if you will, back into balance. If you're in a city, you're in a place that it's all cement, there really is no grass, you don't really have nature, then that's why things like grounding mats have been made, right? Like, so the biohacking tech is that, and that actually can help mitochondrial efficiency quite profoundly. And then the last molecule, and then we can talk some gut health and some other things. I have seen, and I think it works really, really beautifully, is the peptide MOTC and also SS31. So both of those peptides are really great at supporting mitochondrial efficiency. And I will back up a step and just let everybody know that BPC 157, although it's really known, it's called body protective compound, and it really does help to, and this is actually, we'll kind of segue this to gut because this is actually made in the gut, in the gastric juices, and it helps to heal the lining of the gut. It helps to heal soft tissues. However, it's pleiotropic. It's got multiple effects in the body. And what we're finding in the literature is it actually really helps with the cell membrane and the cell structure. So sometimes we think we need to put more things into the cell, But when that structure starts to degrade, it doesn't have its full capacity anymore. So it kind of depends on the severity of where people are at. So this is why you ultimately work with a longevity practitioner, because we talk about the longevity health continuum, that many of us, about 71% of the population, at least stateside here, are already currently diagnosed with one or more condition. 71% of the population. That's pretty extreme, right? So meaning we have something. Now, just because we have something doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It doesn't mean that you have to continue to have that something. When we've been labeled with something, that's the body letting us know, hey, I'm overloaded. I'm out of balance. I'm not recovering. I'm losing resilience. I need help. I don't need help managing the problem. I need help recovering back into balance, into homeostasis. So, what we teach our practitioners is how to work with your clients and patients to not manage problems, but how to actually revivify the human system, and how to be able to assess, are they mild, moderate, severe in complexity? What is happening? Like, we do full intakes. So, I'm giving recommendations today, but the listener kind of has to, it's not just go take all these molecules and do all these things. Like, literally go start with getting a good multi and go spend time in nature. Like, that's where you need to start. Like, get some morning sunlight in your eyes, start to work on your circadian rhythm. It's going to make a massive difference in your energy and your mitochondrial efficiency.
Thank you for sharing that. I love the fact that you always speak about like nature, grounding as tools that are free and anyone can access them.
Yeah.
And there are also systems that impedes our health, like cell towers and 5G and things like that. There's so much research coming out how the signals they penetrate certain parts of our skin. Um,
Mhm.
uh, do you use any devices at home to sort of I know there's so many devices out there that says, oh, we'll help you from 5G and EMF and things like that, and
Mhm.
there's so much pseudoscience around it as well, because there are some companies that, okay, I'm going to put on some papers, pay some people,
Yeah,
get some profit.
sure.
Do you use any devices yourself in your household?
I actually don't have any, and what I would say is, so I'm a little special. I live in the mountains. I'm in a
Okay.
really quite pristine area, and I'm really fortunate. I live in what's called the land of the waterfalls. We have over 200 waterfalls
Mm.
within a 20-mile radius. I'm just kind of vibrating in the frequency of Gaia energy, and so not a lot of EMF, not a lot of things like that we're directly dealing with right here. And yes, there are some really great pieces of tech, and they're measurable. I don't endorse any one, so I think that everybody, you get to go out and kind of do your own research if that's something you feel that you need. And I also would say, again, this is just me. Yes, there is absolutely something to all the EMF completely. However, it's also all, what is our perception of our reality? What do we make of things? How do we talk to our own body? Do we perceive that the world is against us or for us? Is there all these bad things trying to disharmonize us, or, is it there for us? So I would question anyone, and this is not a judgment. Like, this is just really a rhetorical question. What is our personal view of the world? And if you personally feel concern, and or you're having experiences, then you get to go out and do what you need to do for you to feel safe, to feel vibrant, right? To feel alive and whole. Um, my philosophy is maybe a little bit different of how I curate my environment. You see sacred geometry, right? So there's a lot of frequency. So yes, I use frequency, but I use it by way of geometry. I use it by way of sounds I play in my home. So I do a lot of binaural beats and a lot of hertz, so different hertz frequency that will just kind of play. I literally, before this interview, I have tingsha bells over here. I set the tone in my space to make sure that and set an intention. So I don't have a device that plugs into the wall, but I do use other things that evoke frequency, and that's how I choose to go about it.
Healing frequencies. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah,
I really love that you have used sound, nature, light, um, to bring the frequency that would induce natural healing of the system, and keep you vibrant. That's really powerful.
yeah.
I also love love that you touched on the topic of body awareness,
Hmm.
of is the food we take, the way we feel, and the ability. I think health comes in, power comes in, autonomy comes in when we are able to take in that information and take the right action. People with, I believe, with lower levels of dopamine might get stuck in that trauma or phase of you know um, just stuck in that emotion or negative energy,
Yes.
and don't know what to do next. And I think with practice, you are able to, one would be able to, the more you immerse yourself in spirituality and meditative practices and grounding practices, yoga, qigong, surround yourself with like-minded people,
Mhm.
you are able to take in that energy, know what your body needs. You have the relationship to your body, and you have your ideas really align with the concept of coming back to the body and taking the right action. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
Um,
and I would love to share something. I'm going to give kind of a shout out to another individual, and I was listening. I just wanted to make sure I had her name right. I was looking really quickly. Her name is Veda Austin, and she's actually over in New Zealand, and she's done an incredible amount of work and deep research in water. and
mm,
and so when you talk about how I bring it back to body awareness, and food, and it's like, so I'm very intentional. Anything I eat, anything I drink, I take. Even when I fill my son's water bottle up before he goes to school, it's not just about blessing it, but I literally infuse it with emotion. Like, so, like, if it's my son's water bottle, I will just give such gratitude. I will speak into it love and abundance and just vitality. So I speak over everything. If I'm going to have a glass of wine, I bless my wine and I thank it for sharing its wisdom and its expression, because it's the science is so clear that water retains memory. It captures information. And she's got such a profound body of work of showing before and afters of water being exposed to even just a picture, to an image, or to a word for just a moment. And then they have this flash freeze technique to show the before and afters. And literally, you can expose the water to, let's say, to a flower, and like you just expose it. It's in a petri dish. She'll put it in there, take it right back out, like for a moment. Does this flash freeze, and it comes out looking exactly like the flower. Exactly.
mm,
So if we can appreciate for a moment that the human body is about 70% water, give or take, depending on whose research, but we are water. We're water. And so we are retaining information. And so, yes, we can be exposed to things that are coming to us not in a good state, right? There could be some pain, some trauma, some negativity, some agitation. However, as much as we can, we can commune with it and almost kind of reset it, so to speak, before it comes into us. We can reset our own body in what is happening within it. Again, I'm taking maybe some of your listeners to a place where you're kind of like, well, Dr. Melissa is full of crap. Listen, we go deep into research stuff too, but it's like the research is just validating the ancient wisdom that's already within. So I do love inviting people to go, you don't have to keep dismissing the power of your body, the power of your intuition. You don't have to keep looking for the next and the next and the next and the thing outside of you. The human experience, longevity lives within you. Why live longer if we're not living better? If we're not living better, like, why live longer? We're missing we're missing the whole basis. So what do we need today within ourselves that gives us more of what we do want and less of what we don't want? Right? Some simple frames of reference.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause I think everything you say is packed with wisdom, and also could branch out to a different topic. We covered water, energy,
Yeah.
ground, nature, so many things. So let's slowly come back to our body and talk about our second brain, the
Mm-hmm.
gut, one of
Yeah.
the uh, underrated. Not there's a lot of information in the West,
Mm-hmm.
but not in other parts of the world. And one of my missions right now, I'm back home. I'm about to create like a telemedicine startup, but also infused with functional medicine and different technologies. So
Great.
one of my missions is to bring that information from the West back to the East,
Mm.
where the idea of functional medicine it's brand new. There are
Yeah.
a lot of people who have 4 or 5 different medications, and there are 60 and all these different diseases that can be
Yeah.
prevented. So
Completely.
I would love you to delve into that topic.
Yeah. And I know we have a little bit of time left. So here's what I'll say about the gut. Yes, darling. My other dog is in here and now she's wanting out. You're gonna have to wait.
Just a quick. Do you have how much time do you have left in your hand just to calibrate?
Oh,
You
it's
have
oh
to
my
leave
gosh, it's
at
11. I can go until a quarter after. So 15 more
That's
minutes.
perfectly fine.
Okay,
Yes,
let me
thank you.
let her out real quick since we're taking this little check here.
Sure.
Okay. Come on, baby. Out you go. Go, go. She's the one that wants to go hunt squirrels. She's like, let me go. I've got
One
to
of
go
those
see what the
dogs.
squirrels are doing. I've got to go tree them. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about gut health. So, yes, second brain. And again, I like to start with the basics because it really can be quite simple. We've just made it overly complex. So, if you really think about it, the gastrointestinal system is one long tube from mouth to anus, and it's a closed system. And it's really about the process of assimilation and elimination. Bring the good stuff in, get the bad stuff out. Basic. And it starts with our senses. So many of us are living in a very high stressed, disconnected, we're eating on the go, we're traveling on the go, we're eating a lot of, again, box bag, drive through, we're eating less than quality, nutrient dense food. So we're on the go. Let's just start there. I'm not even going to go into food too much, but let's just talk about the nature of how we are all typically living. We're in a little bit more of a sympathetic, dominant type of state, most of us, okay? Most of us humans out there in the modern world. And that means a little bit more of that fight or flight. Now, something that becomes super important straight out of the gate. When we are in fight or flight, we are not in rest and digest. We're going to come back to that point. So, digestion, gut health first starts with our senses. The moment we see food, the moment we smell food, we start to salivate. Our saliva is so important because it's helping to release these really important enzymes that are going to pair with the food that as we start to chew. Most of us are not chewing our food. We take a few bites, we're on the go, we swallow it down and off. Or we're drinking things down and we have to actually chew. Even our drinks, like if you're drinking a smoothie, for example, a protein shake, believe it or not, you need to let that masticate. It's got to move around so that those nutrients, that's where they start to be broken down. So I eat organic, I eat all that, but they still have all these problems. Okay, well, let's first look, are you chewing? Are you chewing your food? Many people are not. What does that mean? You want it to be totally dissolved. And so that's about usually 20 chews, sometimes 30. So we start there because now we're increasing the likelihood that we're making it easier for the body to get what it needs to assimilate the nutrients. That's what food is. It's supposed to be nutrients to get to the cell, right? That's the gas in the tank, to give the cell what it needs to make energy. Why do we need energy? Well, we need energy to be able to repair our DNA, read our DNA, replicate our DNA right? Like, so let's just keep it super basic since we're talking about some epigenetics and some DNA kind of tones today, kind of thread throughout this conversation. So we got to chew. We need to sit down. So if we're already in a distressed state, then what happens is we are impeding and interfering with the digestive process. So what does happen, at least short term, is the moment that we start to eat, it does kick in a side of the autonomic nervous system called your parasympathetic, which does activate this rest and digest. And a lot of times when people are highly stressed and they're like, I just eat all the time when I'm stressed, it's because the innate intelligence of the body is trying to give you a way to counter that stress response. Because the parasympathetic is like pumping the brakes on the sympathetic dominance. So when we eat, it does automatically kick in. However, if we get back up and go, right, or we are on the go, we're not going to stay in that parasympathetic state very long. So our ability to fully digest our food can become impaired. Now, this becomes important, right? Because a lot of times when people are talking about gut health, they're like, well, we need more probiotics and prebiotics and we need less inflammatory foods. And sure, we need good quality food, no doubt. But we're also missing some super fundamental basic things that even with right quality food are the conditions right to optimize nutrient absorption and waste elimination. And typically they are not. So the next thing that we need to consider is when digestion is impaired. We're not chewing enough. We're not just taking time. We're not taking a moment to breathe, to sit, to be, to enjoy our food, to receive our food. We're up, we're gone, we're on, we're like answering phone calls, our systems are hijacked. We stop digestion, and here's what happens. This creates a state called dysbiosis. So all of a sudden, food is sitting in the gut longer than it's supposed to. What happens when food sits in your garbage can? Any idea?
It deteriorates.
It deteriorates,
It
but it literally starts to off gas.
leaks.
Yeah, it creates methane. So when our food sits in our gut, it's just fermenting and it's creating waste, metabolite waste, gas. And not just like, oh, I'm gassy. It's like literally like dangerous gases in our system. Okay. So now we create a very pro-inflammatory environment in our GI. And if this is something that we do day over day, week over week, month over month, not only are we not getting the nutrients in to repair and energize and slow down aging and all that good stuff, but things sit and now we're creating more inflammation. The more pro-inflammatory, the more that actually creates a greater stress response, the faster we're breaking down, the faster we're creating senescent cells, the faster we're aging. Okay. The more inflammation, the more we're aging, just very simply said. And then we start to actually have a lot of signs and symptoms. And we think like, oh, I need some Prilosec. No, you just need to actually chew your food. You need to chew your food. You need to sit down and you need to hydrate. So a lot of us are also not getting enough water in. We're drinking other things, but we're not getting water to help move the food and the waste along. And so those are some basic things, right? But let's pretend, no, Melissa, I'm totally zen. I'm calm. I love my food time is my ritual time. I'm doing all those things great. And my gut's still a mess. Okay. Then we can pull back out a little bit and I can give everybody some basic guidelines. We live in an era of food wars. Everybody wants to say what the right diet is. I have a different philosophy. I just kind of like to look at the genetics and I say, well, what is a human? Well, we are omnivores, right? We're not a vegetarian. We're actually not just a strict carnivore. And I know everybody's going to get mad at me for saying this. This is just my opinion. And when I look at the genetics and I look at what the cell needs and I just look at what the human body needs, it needs complex carbohydrates. It needs protein, ideally animal protein, because we have essential amino acids that we need and that we get from meat. uh, again, animal proteins. We need fats. We need essential fatty acids, meaning essential. When you hear the word essential, that's not made in the body. So we have to exogenously take it in. And that's where a lot of nutritional deficiencies begin. So again, we don't have the right fuel, the right tools to do the right job. The job is not going to get done. And the body will compensate as best as it can for as long as it can. It will steal from Peter to pay Paul, but in time it catches up, meaning things break down. So if you want to prevent breakdown, you want to help yourself be as healthy as possible for as long as possible. You get good food in, get good hydration in, get good sleep in, chew your food, take some time to breathe and be and connect and be in gratitude, right? And so we need these macronutrients. And what we know from a longevity standpoint is that as we chronologically age, we need even more protein. So we need on average, if I'm going to give you a range, about 20% of your daily calories should be protein. More specifically, approximately a gram of protein for every pound of body weight. And people are like, oh my God, that's so much protein. Yeah, hardly any of us are getting what we need. I would venture to say most of us aren't even getting half a gram for every pound of body weight. And so when we're not getting the right tools in, what I need everybody to hear when it comes to gut health, when it comes to healing, your protein are your building blocks, like your DNA, literally everything. We talk about peptides, they're amino acids. Amino acids are broken down from protein. And amino acids build back up to make protein. So they're like these little structures that, are kind of reversible, so to speak. And we don't get it. So a lot of times we have these deficiencies. And so for good gut health, we actually know that we do need polysaccharides. And polysaccharides are really a fancy way to say fiber. Is like, let me just say that. Like if I had to just kind of break it down today. So we actually do need some vegetables, because what it does inside of the gut and the microbiome is it helps to produce the metabolites that the good bacteria need to feed on. When we're not digesting and food is sitting there, we're creating those metabolites that the bad bacteria, and I don't like to call them good or bad, but if we have an imbalance of the different types of bacteria, then that can create bacterial overgrowth. It can lead to things like SIBO. A lot of, like, the bacteria are 10 to 1 to us. Like, we got to love our bacteria. They need to be in harmony and balance too. So often, we do need some good fiber. And according to a lot of the research, we need to make sure we're getting at least 35 grams of fiber a day. And, so that helps when we're taking in good proteins, good complex carbohydrates in the form of veggies, fibrous, starches. That's going to help that environment to produce what we need. And then the butyrate, like it forms these metabolites that are kind of like more gas in the tank that helps the entire system be really, really efficient. And I think I need to come up for air and take a break and see what questions or thoughts or feedback you have.
Thank you for really delving into the fascinating world of digestion and connection of our own internal mindset. I've always realized that, like, the way we eat food, the state we're in, has to have some sort of impact. The interrelational between action, state, and the different inputs of the system. Thank you. That was really fascinating to know, and I'm sure a lot of people don't think about that while eating food.
Yeah.
We thrive in a drive through takeaway
Yeah.
fast go work culture.
Yeah.
Thank you for shedding light on that. Yeah, the gut is a really really fascinating thing for me, and a lot of, I don't know the percent, a lot of people does suffer some form of IBS and things like that. I love my kimchi.
Yeah. Good.
I don't.
We do need natural probiotics, and it's best to get them like kimchi is one of the best forms. Yeah.
Mhm. So Thank you for sharing your wisdom. I know we can keep on talking nonstop. Your energy, knowledge is can shed light to so many different questions that I think are vital for us all of to at least hear
Yeah.
and have the ability to take notes and apply them, not only listen to them.
Yeah.
And you have an institute, you and I think uh, your program, your coaches give that to people.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a little, maybe you can talk right before we end, maybe talk about what is the mission, and how do people access the information you have right now.
Yeah, thank you. Humanlongevity institute.com is, it really, we have two sides of the house. So, what we specialize in is truly delivering the best, most comprehensive training, longevity training and health optimization training to practitioners globally. We are literally in so many countries now. And what that really is, it's the science and the systems and the solutions to helping humanity live better today for longer, healthier, happier, more vibrant tomorrows. And so, we're really proud of our program. It's phenomenal. The countries that are reaching out, like they literally want this in their hospital systems, in their government approach to how they're looking at healthcare moving forward. So it's an honor. I don't, it's not something I take lightly. I'm very committed and dedicated to how we pour into our practitioners. Because like I said, I'm on a mission to help us all remember what it means to be human. And sure, we can poke and prod and look, but like fundamentally there's just this symphony, and none of us as doctors especially have been taught. We've been taught pieces and parts and mechanistic views in, but no provider has been taught the harmonic symphony interplay of the crossroad of lifestyle and molecules and technologies. And in a clinical approach, still a clinical mindset. How do I assess? How do I triage? What's immediate, short, long term? Where's this individual at? Where do they want to go? How do we support them along that journey? So we teach this. We have certification programs, and so you can go over to Human Longevity Institute and find out more about that. And we enroll, while we do have some open enrollment cycles, we literally teach in cohort styles. So our groups of docs will come together, and we typically do 3 cohorts a year where you're going to really go through with a collective and have a pretty beautiful, intense, wonderful experience so that you can move through it and complete it and go apply it. And then we have amazing programs that we have for the consumer. So one is on metabolic health, for example, and we try to keep them short and very actionable, 12-week programs. They're kind of DIY. You're self-guided, so everything's there on our platforms, and we take you through different outcomes that you want to be able to receive. So we are having a lot of fun over at humanlongevity institute.com.
Thank you for sharing, Melissa. It was a pleasure and honor to sit down and have this conversation with you. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure it will open up a lot of people in different ways.
Yeah.
And I will definitely share this links, and also you have a best-selling book as well on the same topics and some of the stuff that we discovered.
Yeah.
So I hope people check that out. I'll post a link to. Thank you so much, Melissa.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure and honor, and I hope to continue this conversation soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.